No, it's just a particle is more like matter. It's a substance. It's what we all have.
Okay, a particle and a matter that isn't an entity without a brain cannot create physical laws.
But if it already has its existing laws, then it can undergo through those laws reaction.
We already established laws can't write themselves. There must be an entity with a mind to first written them. So somebody had to have then existed before those laws, before those particles.
But that's a belief. And
it's not a belief, it's logic. It's illogical to say that laws can be written without a law writer, without a mind. It's totally illogical.
Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Repentance and forgiveness of sin should be preached in his name to all nations. Let us ask God to strangely warm our hearts and set our souls on fire.
No, you have to think that the Bible is like a collection of texts that include a lot of references of the past, you know? I think you're taking the thing very literally.
Good for you. Tell them, very
no,
literally. Get over it.
So like the resurrection of Jesus, I take that very literally, absolutely, because that's the greatest historic fact ever. It's 2019 AD, after the death of who? Not Buddha, not Muhammad, but Jesus. Stand on this side.
But in a certain manner, like the philosophical problem right now is the death of or the crumble of all that type of stories, let's say.
Are you saying like the resurrection of Jesus is a story that's not true?
In a certain manner, yeah.
Where's your evidence for that?
Like it's a symbolic reality, you know, in a certain manner.
No, this is a historic event that Jesus actually walked this earth. We have witnesses, and then there's 500 witnesses that saw the risen Christ. We have 25,000 ancient manuscripts of the New Testament of the Bible that line up within 99% accuracy of one another. Fairy tales don't do that. So you have to think here. This is the most studied book ever in history. They've got these manuscripts. You've got Harvard scholars, Cambridge scholars. They all study the New Testament writings. Now, Jesus did exist. We also have 300 prophecies of the Messiah, and Jesus fulfills every single one of them. This isn't just storytelling time for kindergartners. This is historic fact. Because if we have the bones of 5,000-year-old mummies, why don't we have the bones of the most written person in the ancient world? There is nobody who has more writings of them in the ancient world than Jesus. Did you know that?
Yeah, no. I know clearly, like, Jesus existed, but what I tell you is that, religion in a certain fact is a symbolic reality that helps people to transit certain path, because it's like historical knowledge, you know. But don't take the thing so literally, because it's not so literally. It can be like a pathway, let's say, but not facts.
Did you get one?
In a certain manner.
Well, the thing is, I take you literally because I know you exist. You're standing in front of me. You're speaking to me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the same thing goes with God. I know God exists. I'm talking to Him. When I pray, He's talking to me. And I have a relationship with Him. That's not a religion. Just like Jesus teaches us to have a relationship with God. That is very, very real. So I'm concerned with people who think that that's a religion, because you don't have a religion with your mom and dad. You have a relationship with them, and Jesus teaches us to have a relationship with the Father. But you see, I agree with you that there's a lot of religions that do cause a lot of confusion, and they are fabricative and fairy tales. I do agree with that. The problem with Christianity is that you actually have a man, Jesus, who literally taught everything he did, never sinned, and rose from the dead to prove all of his teachings are true. Who else in history did that? Nobody. Buddha dead, Muhammad dead, Charles Darwin dead. So because Jesus rose from the dead, he proved his teachings are true. He proved there's life after death, and he proved we have souls, and he proved the God he preached is true, and the heaven and hell he preached is true. So that's why I take it very seriously. I don't take every single little thing in the Bible literally, because Jesus does speak in some parables and metaphors, but I take it seriously, the message behind it, because his message is serious. There is a heaven and a hell. That's real. That's literal. Oh yeah, just like this ground is. It's real. Jesus proved it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it can be like a psychological reality in a certain manner, but it's like, as you say, it's a story, and
it's a true story.
In that way.
You okay? You okay? You okay?
Are
you okay? Are you okay?
He does that every time.
Really? Okay.
You alright?
What if?
And whenever we preach, he gets on his knees and he does that.
Oh, is he praying? I don't know. Okay.
I have a question.
You have a question, yes. What's your name?
Afan.
Afan, I'm Joe.
Nice to meet you, Joe. So I'm kind of a curious guy. So just tell me, right? This one question: if God exists, right? So if you believe you all come from somewhere, right? Then who created that God? Where did he
Great
come
question. Normally I get this question from atheist and agnostic. Do you happen to be either?
from? No.
Okay. So the question is, if God exists, who created God? Okay, if God had to be created, he wouldn't be God, because God is the creator, and the creator cannot be created because therefore he would be the creation, not the creator. Simple philosophy.
Yeah, that's true. So then then that means you're saying that God just existed there, just like that?
God's saying he always existed.
And you believe that?
I believe what God says, he's God.
But how do you know that's from God?
Because he's God, he's always true.
No, but you're not understanding me, right? So we believe that, okay, we all come from somewhere, that's God. And you're saying that, God cannot be that way because, he's a creator, not a creation, right? But then that doesn't logically make sense because what's it called? If something comes from like a cause and effect, right? So if something's supposed to happen, right? It's supposed to come from somewhere, right? So in that sense, if you look at God that way, then that makes totally no sense.
No, God's not a thing. But I like how you brought up the universal law of cause and effect, that every cause has to have an effect, every effect has to have a cause. The problem is, you have to eventually have a first uncaused cause. Now, if you can understand the mathematical concept of infinity, why can't you understand God? You go to math class, you hear about infinity, you don't question it. But for some reason, when it comes to God, why are you questioning it all of a sudden? Is it possible you search within yourself? Maybe there's something inside you that doesn't really want to believe in God? Because I think personally, that's my opinion, that's what it is. But ultimately you have this. God has to be uncaused because that's why you have to have the first uncaused cause. That's what makes him the creator. Otherwise he's the creation, he's not God.
Okay, then how come we can't see the uncaused from the Big Bang?
Because I don't believe in the Big Bang, because the Big Bang doesn't make sense. The Big Bang is what you're saying that basically physics is God. That physics always existed and that physics... It's amazing how people hate God, but they love Satan. Why don't you get mad at Satan? He's the one who's killing you. Anyhow, where was I?
You were talking about we were talking about first God, and then we're talking about Big Bang.
Oh yeah, physics. So if the Big Bang, you can't get 0 plus 0 doesn't equal 1. You can't get something from nothing. You can't get somewhere from nowhere. That's why I don't believe in the Big Bang. Where did the Big Bang come from? What caused it?
Well, apparently the Big Bang is there's always been particles, just like we could say there's always been God, right? So then particles they apparently expanded, and that's how the Big Bang occurred. Like, just to oversimplify, I'm not going into it, but like someone can believe the Big Bang as someone can believe God, right? It was just there. So I'm not saying that I don't like. I'm just saying that we don't actually know for sure, but we can have our beliefs. We can have our differences. Like, you believe in heaven and hell. I may believe there not be heaven and hell. And what's it called? Like you say, there's a ground, right? I can't see heaven and hell. We can imagine heaven and hell because we know how the world is. The world is like hell. And we know there are good people too. But we can't like literally see heaven and hell.
I can't see my brain, but I know it's there.
Right, but what's it called? If you take an X-ray, right, that can show you an image of your brain. So there's always like a evidence towards where you can find.
I can go deep in prayer and see things in the spiritual realm and see God and see things God wants to show me.
Okay, how do you know they're God, but not just your own, illusions from your brain? I'm not saying that they're, fake, but just like from your brain. How do you know that's not from it and how that's from God?
Because there's things that can come out that only God would know about somebody, that God would use me to help somebody. In fact, it just happened last night. This is all in the Bible and Jesus teaches us. But I'm going to go back to something where you said particles created the Big Bang. That means that particles are your creator and particles are your God.
No, I'm not saying that particles are God or...
So where do the particles come from?
Where did God come from? That's the same...
God's not particle. Okay, listen. We have laws of physics. Okay. In America, they have a constitution. The constitution cannot write itself. Every law needs a law writer. Every law made needs a law maker. Okay? So, when you have physical laws, they need to be created and written with an entity that has a mind. Particles don't have a mind to create these physical laws. So God is not, you're comparing God to particles. This is like an apple and orange comparison. It makes no, because your particles have no mind to create anything. You have to have foreknowledge to create the laws to then form things. That's God.
Okay. So apparently the laws have already been there. They've existed for such a
So
long
then
time.
your God is physical laws then that created the particles. So your God doesn't even have a brain because physical laws doesn't have a mind. It makes no sense.
Okay, but the thing is, that's not a god. It's more like things that have already been there, that have already been existed for.
That's who you believe is your creator. That's your God.
Okay, that's not my god. Just to clarify.
Your creator's your God.
But how is it a god? It's not an entity. You cannot.
It's the reason why you're here. It's your creator.
No, it's just a particle is more like matter. It's a substance. It's what we all have.
Okay, a particle and a matter that isn't an entity without a brain cannot create physical laws.
But if it already has its existing laws, then it can undergo through those laws reaction.
We already established laws can't write themselves. There must be an entity with a mind to first written them. So somebody had to have then existed before those laws, before those particles.
But that's a belief. And
It's not a belief, it's logic. It's illogical to say that laws can be written without a law writer, without a mind. It's totally illogical.
and the law and the entity itself that creates it, then who created that?
You have to have a first uncaused cause. If God had to have been created, he's not the creator, he's the creation, which means whatever created him would be the creator. And then you have to go to the next cause, and the next, and the next. You have to have a first uncaused cause. This is called logic, my friends.
Okay, logic would have found where God would have come from. Okay, God cannot just...
God can't come from somewhere because then he wouldn't be God. He wouldn't be the creator. He'd be the creation. Then whatever created him that he came from would be God. You have to understand this.
Yeah, okay. Yes, exactly. You just proved it, okay? That's my thing.
But God didn't come from anywhere. That's why he's God.
Yeah, but you don't know that. You believe in...
He says that.
You believe in the Bible. It's a belief.
Yes, I do.
It's like more like...
You believe in science textbooks. It's a belief.
I read what I see. Right, exactly. You're right.
I know.
It's a belief everyone has.
So that's your religion, science.
It's not my religion. It's
That's
just,
what your faith is. You put your faith in that.
but it's what our world constitutes on, right?
No, our world constitutes on God. Without God, our world doesn't exist. And you can't have a constitution without a writer of the constitution.
So then are you saying that science does not exist?
No, I'm saying that's saying science doesn't exist without God.
So you're saying science does not exist without God?
Science has scientific laws. Laws can't write themselves. Laws need a law writer.
But see, that's where I'm getting at, the belief in itself.
It's not a belief. It's illogical to think that laws can write themselves.
Okay, then do you have any definite proof?
Give me one example of a law writing itself by itself. You can't find one. Totally illogical.
Okay, if that's okay, yeah, you're probably right. I don't know anything. I'm just trying to figure it out though, right? But you can't really prove that everything in the Bible has existed, did it?
Jesus existed.
Okay, but that's a belief.
No, it's not a belief. That's history. That's a fact. That's a straight up fact. I'm sorry. 2019 AD, after the death of who? Jesus.
Okay. Can you prove to me why? Why does he?
He's the most written of person in the ancient world. You need to study history better. I understand maybe you haven't studied the history of Jesus very well, but if you go on the journey, you will find out at the very least he definitely existed, my friend.
No, I know. Judas betrayed him. He got crucified on the cross. I've read about it. I'm not saying that.
Good.
I've read about it. I'm not saying I'm not like some uninformed idiot. I know. I'm trying to understand. Though, how do you exactly know what exact evidence, concrete evidence? That's what I'm looking for exactly. Concrete evidence to prove to me that God exists. Logically. And how can you believe the Bible or Quran or any other religion is true? Like what constitutes it as true? What makes it concrete? Just tell me that.
Okay, here's what I would say to that. Jesus rose from the dead, and because he rose from the dead, he proved his teachings are true. Muhammad did not rise from the dead, he's dead. So if I'm going to listen to somebody tell me about life, I'm not going to listen to a dead man. So because Jesus rose from the dead, he taught that you have a soul, he taught the heaven he preached is real, he taught the hell he preached is real, he taught everything he preached is the truth. So that's why I know the truth is from Jesus, and he says he is the truth, that he is God.
So you're getting your concrete evidence from the Bible. Am I getting that right?
I'm getting it from the Word.
The Bible.
Jesus is the Word.
But the Word comes from the Bible, is it not?
The Word always was and always will be.
That's a verse from the Bible.
Okay. Okay, then just tell me one thing, okay? Because I think we have a different opinions of our beliefs, okay? But just tell me just one thing, okay? Oh, what made you believe in the Bible? That's all I want to know.
I studied the historicity of it for about 3 years. I went on a journey, and if you go on that journey, you'll find out. If you humbly seek the truth, because a lot of people, they're like atheists, they don't humbly go on the journey seeking the truth. But I choose to humbly, sit on this side, bro. I chose to humbly seek the truth. And when I humbly was examining these things, I kept finding more and more historical evidence that I couldn't refute. But honestly, the biggest thing was I cried out to God and I asked Jesus to help me. And bro, I felt his presence in my heart. And he changed my life. And I'm no longer a sinner. I strive to be a saint. You can take the scientific method and apply it on the 4 Gospels, which means you can actually read what Jesus teaches, put his teachings into application in your life, and see what happens. You'll find out every single thing he says is true.
Right. Okay. So.
Try loving your enemies. Watch how amazing it is.
Okay. So.
Not easy, but.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You know how you said like you felt like you felt God inside you. How do you know that was God and not just from your mind thinking like that felt like God?
Because my mind can't make me love my enemies.
Yes, it can. It has.
How come atheists don't do it?
Because it's more like your mind. It's more like a drug. Your mind believes in God, and now you're like, oh, well, that's the answer to all my questions. But atheism, they don't believe in God, so they have more of a neurotic or anxiety-driven, like, oh, why is this happening? Why am I suffering in life? Why am I, in this state? But with you, you're like, oh, I have God for that. God's my answer. You have an answer. They don't. That's why, there's like a parallel where, your mind's like, maybe a dopamine rush came, and then you felt like God was inside you, but you never know. Like, that's what I'm trying to show you that.
But I think atheists' brains are their own God, and they'll do whatever their brain thinks is good because they choose what they want to believe and what they don't want to believe. So how come an atheist can't choose? Because I haven't met an atheist that disagrees that loving their enemy is a good thing. How come I don't see them doing that then?
Well, there must be there probably some cases for that. They probably do, probably don't.
Maybe a few do.
Yeah.
But overall they don't, and I've had a lot of them say that they agree that that's a good thing, but they still don't do it. So how come their brain, that their God, isn't having them do that?
Well, then that's a different matter. That's probably because they don't hate their enemies in a different way, like which you do with God. Maybe it's a different aspect, a different perspective in a sense.
No, it's that my God's more powerful than the atheist God. My God's the creator of their God, their brain.
Okay, so, I think that's enough. I think, we have a different beliefs. I believe, that God, if God exists, if we all come from somewhere, then something must constitute that entity in itself. Something must have come from that entity. Obviously, we don't know for sure. We don't know. Obviously, we're humans. We don't know for sure.
Yeah, we do.
But with history, yes, we can find out maybe the teachings and the different parallels of truth between them. But we don't really we don't have concrete evidence, right?
Yes, we do, man. Listen, if you study the resurrection of Christ, that is the most concrete evidence you will find, okay? Try to answer that question first before you answer that. I'm not saying forget all your other questions. I'm saying put them on the shelf for now. Get back to them later. The number one question you need to ask yourself and answer, did Jesus really rise from the dead? If he rose from the dead, he proved his teachings are true. He proved everything that he taught is the truth. And he proved the heaven and hell he preached is true. Go on that journey. You'll find out.
Okay, maybe I will. But for now, I think beliefs are different. Where it comes from, our beliefs. But, we'll see.
When you die, you're going to go somewhere. You have a soul. I can prove you have a soul just using logic.
Maybe.
Do you believe you have a soul?
Sometimes, maybe, sometimes not. I don't know.
Where do your thoughts come from?
My mind.
Where's that mind come from?
So wait a second.
Okay.
So your thoughts come from your brain.
Okay.
Let's say you have a thought going on in your head. Are you able to stop that thought?
Sometimes, sometimes not.
But you have the ability to stop a thought.
No.
Theoretically, you have the ability to stop any thought that's going on in your mind.
No.
Yes, you do.
Okay, what about people who have...
A conscious thought, not a subconscious thought like your stomach's hungry. I'm talking about not one that's like on autopilot, like a willful thought. You're able to cut it off.
Yeah, I can do that.
Any thought that's willful, you can cut it off.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's doing that? You or your brain?
But I'm controlling my brain.
Who are you?
I don't know. That's exactly my point.
The Bible says you're a living soul.
The Bible says that, but do I believe in the Bible?
If you're not a living soul doing that, who are you? Your liver? Who's doing that? Who's cutting off your willful thought?
But see, that's the point I'm trying to make. I'm trying to also find that answer. But I think that religion, like Christianity, can give you that answer in a spiritual sense. But I'm trying to look for the concrete. And obviously, I'm trying to get more information. I don't know as much, but I'm still trying to find that answer. I'm not just will feel oh, maybe it's God, Maybe it's just God. Maybe because,
Well, I never said that either.
Yeah, okay, but I'm not saying to you though, right?
okay.
Saying to me.
Okay.
That's how I see, the world. Okay, so obviously I don't know how my brain works, whether my thoughts are obviously willfully. And if you really think about it though, our thoughts, like, how do they come in the first place? If you really think about it. Like, yes, a thought can come, right? Out of nowhere. And you can willfully take it away or think about it. But where does that thought come from? Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, I believe that God created our minds, and our brain can have some things going on autopilot, things that are going on that are stored behind it. I also believe spiritually that there's other sources that could spiritually influence our thoughts. I'm not going to go too deep into that. But ultimately what I'm going to say is this: if you have the ability to stop a thought that's willfully going on in your mind, your brain isn't the one doing that stoppage. You are controlling your brain. And if you're controlling your brain, you're not your brain, you're something else. You're not your liver that's doing it. You're not your heart. You're a living soul, a conscience connected to your spirit within your fleshly body. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we don't really understand consciousness. We're trying to understand that too, but can't be proved. And other thing is, but what about people with exceptions, who have anxiety, schizophrenia? What about people who can't control their thoughts? What about those exceptions? Like, what do we say to them then?
How do you know they're not demon possessed?
How do you know they are demon possessed?
Because Jesus cast demons out of people?
And we've shown how brain images are different from schizophrenic people, anxious people, and how they affect chemical imbalances such as dopamine and less serotonin or high serotonin increase. So,
What happens first in the spiritual is what then affects and comes out in the natural.
Yeah, but what's it called? We can't see the spiritual though. If you believe in the Bible, if you believe in religion,
Doesn't mean it's not going on though.
yeah, but what if someone who doesn't believe in religion? Then what do they do? Do you just die? Then you can't really do
Well,
that.
if they don't believe in Jesus as their Lord, they're not going to inherit His kingdom. That's what He says.
So what? Then we're supposed to throw them away, let them die? No, I don't think that.
No, that's why we're out here, to try and help them live.
But I don't think. But what's it called? Religion doesn't actually help schizophrenic people, as we.
Who said anything about? I hate religion, bro.
You hate religion?
Yeah, I don't have a religion with God. I have a relationship with God.
You have a relationship with God. Okay, then,
Do you have a religion with your mom and dad, or a relationship with them?
yeah, but what's it called? Religion is supposed to mean religion is Christianity, is it not?
No, there's different denominations of Christianity that are religions, but Christian just means you follow Christ. Christ isn't a religion; He's a person.
Okay, then so you have a relationship with God, right?
Yep.
So then, are you Christian?
Yep.
And are you saying Christianity is not a religion? Then what are you trying to say about Christianity?
Bro, I have a relationship with my God. I don't have a religion with Him.
Yeah, but I'm trying to understand, okay, so you say, okay, but Christianity is religion, and you follow that, right?
I follow Christ. Christianity means I follow Christ. I follow Him. He's not a religion. He's a person. He's my God.
But do you know what does religion mean then?
Religion has this formed set of theological doctrinal beliefs that a lot are Christian based in denomination, but so they take some of what Christ says, but they omit some and they add some things. I follow totally what He says, so I follow Christ. He's a person, not a religion.
But how does that make sense though? Because there's Old Testament. So then are you saying you believe in the Old Testaments?
What do you mean I believe in the Old Testament?
Because you're saying that, okay, Christianity takes away some of Jesus' teachings and put new things in. So that's the New Testament in a sense, what you're talking about. So you're saying you believe everything Jesus said. So you believe in the Old Testament, right?
Yeah, but I'm not under the Old Covenant law. I'm under the New Covenant law because Jesus says that this is my blood, the New Testament, the New Covenant. So we're under New Covenant with God.
Okay.
The Old Testament laws, yeah, I believe in. I believe that they're from God. I learned from the Old Testament to read about God's character, what He's like, what He hates, what angers Him, what He loves, how He works, how He operates. But I'm under Jesus' commands right now. He's my Lord and Savior, not the Old Testament law.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Do you think everything is predetermined?
No,
So you think we have free will?
absolutely.
So then,
God has free will and we're made in His image, and we can't have free will unless God has free will. And if He has free will and we're made in His image, we have free will.
So does God know everything we're about to do in life?
It's a very complicated question. I'd rather not answer that right now.
I mean, okay, fine.
You can email me though if you want to talk about it.
Okay, fine.
I don't want to confuse the people in something that deep.
Okay, fine. But then isn't that contradictory if you say that? Because then if
God knows everything that can be known.
okay, so then God already knows what will happen to us, right?
I don't want to get into it, man.
Okay. Then I think I'm done then. Because if you don't want, I guess I want to get into that. Because then I feel like we can find some common ground. But for now, I guess I'm just gonna have to go through that journey, learn by myself. And I just want to have a dialogue. I had that. Thank you.
I appreciate it, bro. Thanks. Thanks for your time. Anybody else want to talk? Anybody? Anybody else? So Jesus is the only way, folks. Jesus is the only way to heaven. There is no other way. He's alive. He can hear you. He loved you to give his life for you. He gave up his throne in heaven for you. He's beautiful. I've seen miracles. You can see miracles. You can be a part of them. God can use you. You can be used by the Almighty God for His glory. You can change and be transformed.